also worked. So if people derive from that those impressions, then that was never, ever my intention. And that is why I never mentioned any tribe or any group of people. I stuck to regional context, and there was a basis for it. And that is where it stands. But if it's for those who are offended, I withdraw the statement if they take offense with it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, it was just so that we can agree, but I'll start with Mr. Chairman.
Can I say that the aspect of the statement which I think is important and well is that I'm being nominated, or I've been nominated for the whole of Ghana, and I did say it even in the statement. I represent every Ghanaian if I am given the nod by this House to represent the whole of Ghana. And any other part of the statement which creates some ambiguity or difficulty in this matter, I'm happy to withdraw. And I plead the indulgence of this august House. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I think he's done well to dissociate himself. That is the platform I wanted to create. My question, the Chairman has to allow you.
No, yeah. Wait.
Is that follow up? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair, I have two simple questions. I realize that the Chief Executive of Konfanochi Teaching Hospital is right behind you. And I happen, somewhere behind you. And he's my senior colleague. Both in the medical school and in the field of practice. An accomplished surgeon he is. That is not the issue. The appointments of hospital administrators, not chief administrators. He is a chief administrator. That's not him. I happen to have spoken against it, that a letter emanated from the Chief of Staff's office appointing a hospital administrator, which was a dangerous precedent. And it happened in Konfanochi. Would you assure this House that when you become the minister, you provide us with the information of all chief executives in government hospitals per regions and where those chief executives hail from?
I'm slightly at a loss as to how to answer. I'm slightly at a loss as to how to answer the question. I believe if I'm there and a written request is made, which is in order and is in the right process and procedure, which I do not know as I sit here in terms of the appointments of such directors, I don't want to say what I will do or not do when I don't know the process. But I know that this august House has the power to request information at any given time, which we all try to comply with in the ministries. And therefore, if the request there's no issue with the request, yes, I promise I will comply with it.
Sir,
but I cannot say
my question was simple. When a member requests for information, you say you are going to give it or not. So Segbefia, you are not here to tell me whether my questions are right or wrong. Please,
I apologize.
Let me ask my question. My question was so simple. I said, when you become Minister of Health, if or when, would you provide me with all the heads of government hospitals per the various regions? Would you? When a member decides to solicit for information, it's not only a written question to you. It includes questions I'm asking now because you're under oath. You don't need to get worked up on these things.
I'm not in the least.
So answer my question.
I will. Can I just...
Please hold on. Don't forget that there's a procedure for tabling questions. So if you comply with the procedure, why not? You'll be under an obligation to
Mr. Chair, you are right. There is a procedure. It includes me asking questions now. Directly. And I've asked a question as simple as, would you give me that? Tell me no.
If you go through the proper procedure.
It is including this. My questions here are proper. My questions are proper.
You see, he's not yet in the seat, don't forget. So how can he give you answers to questions pertaining to the ministry when he's not yet there? Very well. If you qualified it, fine. Okay, honorable nominee, please.
Mr. Chairman, I believe I've answered the question, and I said yes. That's what
Mr. Chair, I've asked only one question. What?
No, he has two. Yes, he has two. He has two. Two each. Yes, honorable. Yes. Honorable Atachia, it's your turn.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to do a follow-up, but you directed that I should preface my follow-up with my substantive question. So I just want to ask the follow-up because it flowed from what he said. Oh, please, I crave your indulgence.
Order. Honorable Atachia, you have the floor.
Yes, Mr. Segbefia, congratulations. I was not too happy with the answer you gave to Honorable Napo's interrogation relating to the statement attributed to you in the Volta region. And you said if that was the case, you want to withdraw some aspect or not. I thought you would say you made the statement or you didn't make the statement. But if you didn't make the statement, why withdraw? I was a bit confused.
The reason I couched my statement in that regard was it was an extempo statement. I didn't have a written document. So it's not like I can have a speech and I'm saying that every word that has been said there is verbatim. That is the reason why I couched it that way. Thank you.
So it was not a written speech. Okay then. My first question is this. My first question is this. Mr. Chairman, you should protect me from the paparazzis.
Please go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Segbefia, I heard you say that the problems bedeviling the national insurance scheme is a result of the expansion of the scheme.
The expansion is one of the.
But I'm reliably informed that the real problem why the national service scheme is not given. I'm sorry, the national health insurance scheme is not giving us the benefit we want to have is because half the time the levies, which are statutorily, are diverted and released as and when the government pleases. Are you aware of this situation?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware of this situation.
Do you know, or you do not know, that, I'm coming with, Mr. Chairman, these guys are, do you know that insofar as the government will want to divert the monies intended for the national insurance scheme and will not apply those revenues directly to the scheme, the system will suffer? That's the question.
If monies are supposed to be allocated directly to a particular fund, and the money doesn't arrive there, yes, there will be difficulties, but I don't know that that is the case. And I believe, and I stand to be corrected, that these monies are paid into, or some of these monies go into the consolidated fund, which is the general pot. If that is the case, then it then becomes an accountancy issue as to what goes where and how. But I'm not in a position to comment beyond that.
As a lawyer, you know that when statutory funds are supposed to be applied for a certain purpose and they are diverted, that is a clear-cut case of statutory infraction, the government disrespecting the law. Is that not so?
I'm aware that if there are statutory requirements of certain payments to be made to anybody, then the statute should be followed and that is what should happen. But as I said, I'm not aware that any such thing is happening. And in actual fact, if you are in the ministry itself, unless you are diverting the funds after it has been given to you, you would have no control of how the funds come to you. That is a matter, I believe, for the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning.
Finally.
No, Honorable Member, you've exhausted your number of questions. Yes, Honorable Mrs. Azuma Mensah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would also like to take this opportunity to congratulate you, Honorable Alex Segbefia, Percival. I've only got one question. About 2 years ago, we passed the Health Institutions and Facilities Regulatory Act. And as of now, we don't even know if the board is in place. And as you know, we need to implement this act to make sure whatever each of the institutions or the health facilities they do are in place. Now, you are going to be the substantive minister once we give you the nod. I wonder what you think you will do to facilitate and expedite action to make sure the authority is in place so that we can implement the act. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not aware of this particular act. Obviously, it's an important one and close to the honorable member's heart. But when acts are passed, it's important that they are implemented. And so when, if I am given confirmation by this honorable house, I will look into it, find out exactly what it is we are supposed to be doing. Also, find out why we haven't been doing it. Actually, this is the main crux of it. What has kept us back, and try and rectify it, immediately bring it into force. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Ileche.
Thank you very much. Why are you looking at me? Yeah, I'm looking at the question. First of all, let me add my voice as chair of the committee that is going to work with you if you become minister. Of congratulations. Now, the question I have for you is that over the years, every minister has tried to complete projects that were started so that we have some finality to certain health projects. One of them is the Bekwai Municipal Hospital. Yeah. I don't know what briefs you were given by the ministry for this exercise, but will you get a proper appreciation of the status of these projects and make efforts to get resources to complete them, particularly that project?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that efforts have been made already within that ministry, which are far advanced to ensure that the funding for the completion of that project, along with the completion of the maternity unit in Kumasi Hospital, are being worked on fruition is far advanced. And I intend that if I'm given the nod, I will definitely ensure and facilitate that this takes place as soon as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, recently the committee's attention was drawn to a circular creating 4 more directorates in the Ministry of Health. Now, the PNDC law, which establishes the civil service, has specific ways of doing this. I don't know whether you are aware of these new directives, but can you tell this committee that when you become minister, proper procedures will be followed in creating directorates?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, when I become minister, if I'm given the nod by this august house, I will try and ensure that the proper processes and procedures are followed when directories are to be completed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in presenting the message on the state of the nation for 2014, the President indicated to the nation that there will be a pay cut from his appointees to put up some cheap compounds. Later in the course of that year, last year, the Minister for Finance appeared before the House and answered questions and told us how much had been realized. As of now, we are not told which sites or locations, the locations where those cheap compounds are being put up. If you are giving the nod, how are you going to follow through this policy statement of the President to ensure that the people of Ghana get to know that it's been done?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The issue of CHIPS compound is very close to the current government's heart. It's a policy that is the bedrock of the whole health service issues that pertain to this country. And if I'm given the nod, one of the main things that I will have to continue with, which has been started by my predecessor, is to totally finalize and begin the construction work of the CHIPS compound right across the country. There is the need for regional balance, especially since you have some donor countries already building some chip compounds in the country. We have already built a good number in the first term of this government, and therefore, once we look at the spread across the country, it will be clearly demarcated, and no doubt, I'm sure honorable members of this House will be keeping a keen eye because it will affect many of their constituencies. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, by way of interest, may I know from the Minister Designate, how much of your own emolument is set aside for that purpose?
I believe it's about, from our salaries, I believe 10% is taken every month. And from the day that I became the Deputy Minister of Defense, I noticed the dip in my salary.
How much does it translate to? How much does it translate to?
Because I
Honorable
was
Minority, I think that will be going too far. I think that will be going too far.
I can't really tell.
If you have any more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as somebody coming from the Brunga-Havo region, I always feel sorry when I visit the regional hospital in Sunyani because there are so many things that the hospital is lacking, including even strangers. Many things, basic logistics that the hospital requires for effective work. They don't have it. And the nurses and the doctors are always complaining. When you become the minister, what assurance do you give us that not only for the regional hospital in Sunyani or the district hospitals in Brahafo, but for the whole of the country, that logistics will be made available to all hospitals for them to work effectively because the life of our people is dear to us?
Yes, honorable nominee.
I believe that there is a scheme that has been rolled out over a number of years where all the health centers, regional hospitals and district hospitals have been re-equipped with equipment. And equipment, when I'm talking here now, fixed equipment, new fixed equipment, most hospitals, district hospitals, and even health centers have benefited largely from this project, which ran into a huge amount of millions. And that has been dealt with. However, in terms of the revolving infrastructure, if I can put it that way, syringes, drugs, etc., the whole issue of the supply chain with regard to items like that is a factor that I intend to continue with or look at and come up with a completely new process, if possible, because of what has happened with the central medical stores. We have to look at that as an opportunity now to look at the whole systems and decide how we are going to deal with supply chain, not only for drugs, but for other infrastructural equipment like syringes, gloves, etc.
Very honorable member for Bekwai.
Thank you. Honorable Deputy Minister, have you remarked anywhere that the President has nominated an Asante to the Defense Ministry and he's going to stage a coup?
Well, honorable member, I'm not too sure if we can base questions on speculations and things like that, you know. Very well, honorable member, honorable nominee.
No.
That's reassuring. But I'm interested in the health service delivery. Doctors in the past 1 year or more have consistently been in the news and actually giving a date by which they would resign from the public service. It is to do with their conditions of service. Are you well briefed about that? And what would you recommend, what actions to end these agitations of doctors in particular forever?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, I would indicate that the issue with the doctors, there is a committee that has been working to deal with that particular issue. And they are waiting for the full recommendations from that committee to do with their service conditions. And so it's not something that has been left aside and not being looked at. It's being looked at. They are waiting for the report to come through for it to then be, and I'm aware that the Honorable Minister of Employment, who is present here, is part and parcel of that particular activity. Once the committee puts it together, I believe it will be taken to his desk, where I believe once he's satisfied with the content, it will be signed. So it's something that is being looked at and is being dealt with. However, I must add that because of the nature of the previous question, for my own benefit, I have never heard this before. So I would like some clarity as to where that came from, because I'm actually in shock. I don't know where it has come from. So I just wanted some clarity as to... Yes. I'm not saying open it. I'm saying I don't understand.
Very well. Honorable member, honorable nominee, I don't think we want to go into that here. You've given your answer and we're moving on. Yes, so Honorable Titus Glover.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Alex, congratulations.
Yes, Honorable. Thank you very much.
I want to take you through memory lane. Down memory lane. From Anyako to Tama. The president recently in Botswana made a statement using the metaphor, describing himself as a dead goat. In other words, he has become impervious to strikes and demonstrations. You are going to a ministry that has a high labor agitations, i.e. doctors, pharmacists, nurses, lab technicians, etc. How prepared are you with these industrial actions? And the fact that the president says that he's not going to budge to pressures from the labor front. With these coming, I mean, how are you going to manage this with a statement made by the president?
Honourable Member, I prefer that you restrict your question to what he will do in the ministry, as much as possible.
That's what I said.
Yes, what he will do, but talking about dead goat and all of that.
It came from here. It came from there. Mr. Chairman, Alex, please help us.
I think that,
yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I think that the issue of agitation invariably tends to be cross-sectorial. In situations like this, the bottom line is that you need to actually dialogue off-the-cuff statements without actually understanding the history of the basis for which things have come about are not to be encouraged. And therefore, safe to say that I will be liaising constantly with the ministers whose sectors they fall under, along with my ministry, if I am given the nod, means that we would then be able to come to some form of acceptable compromise with regard to the issues of strikes. It is a right that is enshrined in our constitution, and if people are aggrieved about something and they wish to demonstrate, so long as they follow the right process, they are allowed to do so. But it's important that the right process is followed, and it's also important that government has a listening ear, which I hope when I get to the ministry, I will do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, the immediate past Health Minister, Dr. Ajima Mensah, I asked him the same question with regards to the Tema General Hospital that was given to the people of Tema by Parkinson Howards, the contractor who fixed the Tema port. It is a referral hospital, but unfortunately, it has become a death trap. No surgical theater. You don't have water in the hospital. In fact, we need a total holistic upgrading of the Tema General Hospital. When you get a nod, what assurance are you giving the people of Tema, the surrounding towns, Boom, Ningo, Pramprang, Ada, and all those on the motorway who have accidents on the motorway are referred to the Tema General Hospital? What are you going to do to upgrade the Tema General Hospital, which has become a death trap? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that in terms of the policy of the infrastructure and building of hospitals and health facilities across the country, one is fully aware of the fact that without the right health centers, CHIPS compound health centers, clinics, before you even get to the district type hospitals in the areas, a lot of pressure is then put on certain hospitals because you don't have other referral hospitals in the area. Tema General Hospital tends to fall into one of those brackets. And I am aware that there's also a new hospital being earmarked in the Tema area, I believe.
Where?
I stand to be corrected, but I believe
maybe you can do your checks, but
okay.
Not to my attention.
It may be a health center, but I'll look at it. All I will say is that the pressures on Tema have been noted, and I am aware that you actually raised this at the last vetting committee of my predecessor. Once I'm given the nod, or if I'm given the nod by this august house, it is something that I intend to look into and to see how we can rehabilitate. Most of the time, we get caught up in the building of new structures, but it is correct that some structures have the space and just need to be rehabilitated with one or two structures added, and I believe that that is the situation with Tema. We quickly were able to put up an Ebola center attached to the Tema General Hospital. I believe that a little bit more effort should be able to see us put up the necessary things that are required for that hospital. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Honorable Mrs. Osla Edufu.
Thank you.
Ekufu, not Edufu.
Ekufu.
Ekufu. Thank
No. Congratulations, Mr. Segbefia. The last time we met was under very happy circumstances. When I shall explain. When we were co-hosts at one of the topsy-turvy programs in Joy FM. So we had a lot of fun together and helped dispel a lot of myths that as political opponents we were enemies and at each other's throats. So it's nice to see you in this chair.
Thank you.
The central medical stores were recently in the news, having been destroyed by fire, allegedly to cover up some discrepancies in the goods being stored there. Let me just put it that way. I'd like to know what the status of investigations into the cause of the fire and what is being done to preserve the state's investment in the health sector across the country to forestall any such incident occurring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The burning of the central medical stores is definitely an unfortunate incident in the annals of our history. It is also correct that an investigation has been carried out, and I believe that a report was only made available, or we told it's available. I heard about it, I think, on Friday. So I believe that it will go through the necessary process. I wouldn't have had access to it at this stage. It will go through the process and then be sent to the powers that be. If I'm given the nod by this august house, no doubt it will be one of the main things that I have to tackle the moment I am in office. And I believe that all the recommendations and issues that will come out of it would be adhered to by myself in tandem in ensuring that the integrity and the sanctity of the way in which government is perceived with dealing with issues of this nature is brought to the fore. At the moment, as you yourself indicated, and I was glad to see the legal balance in it when you said allegedly, let's wait for the report and see what comes out of it. Thank you very much.
I would also like to give you this opportunity to clear the air about some statements that you reportedly made at the height of the Woyome controversy. And this is in light of your own CV, which indicates that you have excellent communication skills and excellent analytical and commercial acumen skills with a critical mind, and the emphasis is on common sense approach to problem solving. In light of the Supreme Court ruling, and in view of your skills, which you have highlighted here, do you regret using your excellent communication skills to defend Woyome with the benefit of hindsight?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, my colleague is fully aware that the matter of Woyome has been appealed. And therefore, technically, as a lawyer myself, I believe that the matter is sub judice. And therefore, I'm not in a position to comment. I would really love to. And one day, I will come out and explain myself. But I would defer to the law of the land at the moment. Once this matter is over, I'm sure you hear about it, but at the moment, I do not want to make any further comments on the issue.
I am referring to the Supreme Court ruling last year, which is not subject to appeal, in which the Supreme Court indicated that it was, to quote Justice Jones-Doche, to create, loot, and share, and in which the Supreme Court directed that the monies be refunded. That is not subject to appeal. I'm not talking about the criminal matter.
Can I indicate that the judgments are linked, and my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, and I stand to be corrected, my understanding is that the Waterville case and possibly the Isophoton case have been sent to the International Tribunal for some interpretation. If that is correct, then with the little law that I know, I believe that it still remains sub judice, and therefore
Honorable members, I think he's right. It's before the International Court of Arbitration. Before the International Court of Arbitration. Please. It is before the International Court of Arbitration, so as much as possible, let's just, Yes, Honorable Queensta Sawyer.
Mr. Chairman, may I just indicate that if a matter is before any court, Parliament is not precluded from making any comment on it. I think it rests on the laps of the person in charge. In this particular case, the chairman. If the chairman directs that we cannot make any further comment, so be that. But Parliament is not precluded in pronouncing on that or discussing that matter. Mr. Chairman, with respect.
Well, but I think that standing orders make certain provisions. I think it's Order 93. To the extent that it's likely to influence the outcome, yes. So I think that let us just let sleeping dogs lie. And that is so. That is so. That is my rule. That's my rule. Yes, Honorable Queensta Sawyer, it's your turn. Order. Honorable Queensta Sawyer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations, my brother.
Thank you.
He's my brother. I want to go back to the National Health Insurance Scheme. Some people are seriously advocating for an increase in the health insurance premium. Do you consider that as the best option so we can move the scheme forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is clear with time, and as I said, it was indicated way back when the review was done in 2005, is that the revenue stream of the national health insurance will have to be looked at and possibly increased. But without going through the process and going through a proper review with necessary consultation done as to where the source of the money will come from, it's not one that I would like to even begin to speculate on at this stage. What I do promise is that if this August House gives me the nod, I will definitely be at the forefront of championing a position which will come to a cessation of looking for funds and try and bring this whole issue of getting extra money for the national health insurance to an end based on a sustainable process. I'm also aware that staff of the National Health Insurance, along with members of the Ministry of Health, have visited a number of countries to look at how they have dealt with difficulties of this nature when they were at this stage in their process. And so there's a lot that I will be able to glean and learn from if I'm given the nod by this August House. Thank you.
Honorable Segbefia, you'd agree with me that last year cholera claimed a lot of lives in Ghana. If given the nod, what new proposals would you put in place to curb it this year, God willing?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to strengthen intersectorial, intergrouping task forces or groups because one of the issues that we have learned from what happened in this unfortunate epidemic, and for which I will start off by saying that condolences to all those who lost their lives, or family members who lost their lives as a result of it. But one of the issues that we have to look at is how, as a team, people work together. The preventative part of dealing with cholera is key. Sanitation, key. Local government plays a part. AMA, a much closer part under the local government. Ministry of Health has its part to play. Ministry of Education, in terms of education within schools, etc., have a part to play. You have to look at the holistic issue. And one of the things that, if I'm given the nod, I will try to come back to, is that when we had the unfortunate situation of the scare, which still exists to a point, of Ebola, we were all quick to implement situations where even in our ministries, departments and agencies, we had sanitizers, we had water to wash our hands. As people have begun to feel a little bit more comfortable, you notice that all this has begun to whittle down. I will try and champion the cause where we keep that level of sanitation, because it's not only about Ebola. Cholera has a part to play in it. It's about many diseases which are communicable diseases, which deal directly with hygiene. So that is what I intend to do. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Dr. Atu Arthur.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. A follow-up from the earlier question on health insurance.
It's not a supplementary. It's a main question.
That's okay. Mr. Chairman, Honorable Segbefia was involved in the launch of NDC party manifesto. Regarding the national health insurance, you touted one-time premium. What has happened to it, and given the nod, would you want to explore the one-time premium?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The one-time premium was touted in the 2008 manifesto. It does not feature in the 2012 manifesto. The reason for that was that within 2008 and 2009, between that period, a full review, a committee was set up with all major stakeholders to look at the implementation of that scheme. The outcome of that was that it was not the appropriate time to actually deal with the one-time premium. As a listening government, we took the view that we would not implement it, and that is what has happened currently. I do not believe, and because of that, it was not something that was put into the 2012 manifesto. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to my second question, but I believe that then NDC should apologize to Ghana.
Please ask your question. Please ask your question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, but may I ask whether the honorable nominee still believes that that aspect of your manifesto is still implementable?
I think that it's...
Order. Honorable nominee, please answer the question.
It's not part of our manifesto. If you're talking about what the issue was in the past, all I would say is that there are financial constraints at the moment with the national health insurance. And therefore, to look at it holistically, even if you wanted to do it, the kind of premium you'd have to place on it would make it not feasible. So it may be something that you may be able to do in the future. But currently, going into that ministry, it is not something I'm looking to champion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm using his own words that it's not feasible. What feasibility studies were conducted into it before you came up with that determination?
Mr. Chairman, There is always a difference, I would say, in a manifesto situation and when you are actually in the chair. And it is correct that we looked at all the available issues at the time before that commitment was made for the 2008 manifesto. But it is also correct that various things were brought to our notice subsequently. It is also correct that we did the right thing by saying, it's not a case of we've done a promise, so just go ahead. No. We put stakeholders together and said, look, now let's look at this thing with all the data that we have. Is it feasible? And the answer that came back was no. As a listening government, we took that course of action. Thank you.
So, Chairman, my second question. Oh, I had only one. So, Mr. Chairman, according to WHO 2014 report, the registration of all births and all deaths, and even the causes of the deaths are very important. They are most valuable assets a country can have. And you agree with me, it affects the area of training, medicine that is manufactured or imported, fertility rate and all others. Unfortunately, in Ghana, the GHS 2011 report states that almost 30% of health deliveries are supervised by TBAs, traditional birth attendants. You agree with me that most of them are illiterate. It tells you that not all births are registered. Not all deaths are registered. Not all causes of deaths are known. Given the nod, what will your ministry do to ensure that this 2014 WHO report, the recommendation, will be functional in Ghana?
Mr. Chairman, the whole area of registration of births and deaths has a direct relation as well with the National Health Insurance Scheme. Because the National Health Insurance Scheme actually has one of the best data sources in terms of people and their health situation in this country, ever since they introduced the biometric situation. And as more and more people get on it, the ability to know more and more about what they are doing and what happens with regard to the birth situations will be improved. The issue of births and deaths also has to do with traditional norms, the fact that, and for me the baseline is that the key to it is the CHIPS compound. Because in our traditional areas, if you have the community health nurses who actually become part and parcel of the community, they begin to be able to perform the roles that are required, especially at the time of birth. In some traditional areas, some mothers are not even allowed to leave the birth area with the child for a number of weeks. But at least if you have a health nurse who is aware, they can visit. And if there are issues of an emergency, they know how to make contact with the necessary ambulance service or whatever to move the mother and child into a position of care and safety if the need is required. So the emphasis for me is on the CHIPS compounds and the health clinics, the health centers, because they are what will eventually begin to lower the rates of mortality rate for mothers, maternal mortality rate, and the infant mortality rate. It's an area which we are struggling to meet the MGDA targets 4 and 5, but we believe that we've come a long way, and with a little extra push, we should be able to meet them much earlier than the 2030 deadline that has been forecast at the rate at which we are going. But the key is the CHIPS compounds and the health clinics. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Kujetu Ablakwa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations once again, Honorable Alex Segbefia. My first question has to do with your background as a lawyer. You were called to the UK by 1988. You seem to have had quite an illustrious legal career. My question has to do with growing reports of medical negligence, some surrogate mothers who say that their rights are being violated, the whole issues around surrogacy and its legal implications, and all these matters that has to do with the rights of medical practitioners and also patients on the other hand, so that we can improve on health delivery, we can ensure that at all times rights are being respected and that the delivery of health care is properly being done within a legal context that, as it were, respects the rights of all. How do you intend to bring this rich legal experience of yours to improve on our current regime, medical legal regime, as per all the issues that are coming up in recent times, bordering on medical negligence, bordering on surrogacy and other matters that have to do with the law?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The issue of law in Ghana is that actually we have a lot of laws and many of them are not being applied. But there's also the need to understand that when law is passed, ever so often there's the need for amendments. If not so, the law can become obsolete or cannot be workable. And that is an area which has to be looked at across board, not just in the health sector, across board in the country. Because you tend to find that the world is moving faster pace, computers, etc., etc. And our ability to legislate and also amend our laws is not keeping up with the pace. And you're struggling to sometimes use legislation which is not fit for purpose, creating the situation where you have interesting issues and debates arising in our courts of law. So it is, once if I'm given the nod, one of the things I would like to look at is to find out what the current situation is. There's an insurance aspect to this, because actually for issues of medical negligence, there should be insurance on all doctors, on all health institutions, so that if there is an issue that arises, the insurance can pay. And actually it means that people become more diligent in the activities they do when they are working in the workplace. We have a long way to go in this area, but at least the discussions have begun, and if I'm given the nod, it's something that I would like to definitely look into and see how far we are and progress it even further than exists at the moment within the health sector. Thank you.
Honourable Member, let your prefacing be as brief as possible. The foundation I'm talking about.
Certainly, sure, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my final question has to do with the latest indices. It will appear that life expectancy has gone up. Infant mortality has also declined quite drastically, we are told. Maternal mortality also, we are told, has improved. Are you conversant with these latest indices? And what will you say accounts for these positive developments, and how do you intend to maintain this trajectory for the benefit of our people?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The history of, or credit can be given to some of these figures because of the National Health Insurance Scheme. In the past, when we all had to pay for everything, the deprived, the underage, and the overaged wouldn't even go to the hospital because they couldn't afford it. It was simple as that. So with the advent of the National Health Insurance, it has meant that more people have been willing to access healthcare who would not have even bothered and gone possibly to people who would not be in a position to properly look after them. So we can give some credit there, and that is why then there's a need to make sure that we deal with the national health insurance in a way which will continue to deal with the lives of our deprived and poor people, because they have been the ultimate beneficiaries of this scheme. The accommodate this particular anomaly which exists in terms of the retirement age and the age at which you have access to the free national health insurance scheme. Once the consultation program has been gone through, I'm sure we might be able to find a middle ground that will assist everybody. Because there's also the issue of at what point did you leave, when you left and you stopped working, who were you working with, what your pension rates are, do you have private pensions, etc., etc. All these are going to be thrown into the basket when we look at issues. Thank you.
Chairman, my final follow-up.
Honorable Member, you have exhausted your number of questions. Honorable Baba Jamal, you have the floor.
Chairman, I really don't have any question, but to say congratulations to him because I've worked a lot with him and I know he can handle it. Yes.
Thank you.
Where's Chief Whip? Okay. Honorable Nitu.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Let me congratulate the nominee and wish you well if this committee recommends you to Parliament and Parliament so approves you.
Thank you very much.
I want to find out from you, when was the first time you registered yourself in terms of seeking for a birth certificate in Ghana? When was the first time that either you or your parents asked for a birth certificate?
I can't answer. The first time I, at adult age, asked for a birth certificate is the one I've handed in. All the other birth certificates, I was a minor, in my understanding. I didn't ask for those the birth certificates. It was done by my parents. One of them, I believe I was abroad even, and I asked for some reason or the other. I think my passport had been stolen when I was in Italy. And I needed my birth certificate to apply for a new passport. And that is how it came to me. So, my understanding and my recollection, but I stand to be corrected, was that all those birth certificates, I was not of adult age.
I asked you this question because the records you presented to us, that is birth certificate that you have, which you picked last Friday from the birth and death registry, shows that last year, 2014, was the first time you asked for a birth certificate. That's why I asked you that question. You stand by it. Check the birth certificate very well. It will tell you when you registered for a birth certificate.
As I indicated, I have not, the only time the issue came up was when I was coming for vetting last year. Prior to that, I have not asked for a birth certificate myself.
So let me read a copy of what you just gave us. When you look at it properly, you will see that what you have now was given to you on the 10th, which was just last Friday. But when you look at the date of registration, it is 17th July 2014. Have you seen that?
Thank you. I remember soon, if not the day after or the day thereabouts, when I came for the vetting, I asked for my birth certificate immediately after. I know I was sworn in on the 21st of July. I can't remember when I actually came to the August House for the vetting. But as a result of that vetting, I asked for a document. And that is when the first registration to get me that document was done. And I then pointed out to them at the time that you've got my spellings wrong, and therefore it's not a valid, the details are not correct. So they then went to check it. But they never sent it back. So when I went, I said, I want now, you've had this thing now, can I have it? And they gave me this with the right spelling on it.
That's fine. So you are actually saying that even though you applied for a certificate and you told us that your parents had, you didn't have a copy at that time. And so you needed a copy. Is that it?
The copy that I have is what I gave you. I know that my mom had what I'm told is an extract of actually the page when I was with everything on it. And that's why I was able to, even if you remember, give you the time of birth. And that is what I could not get, and unfortunately my mom has passed. So I went and said, look, just give me the extract, a copy of the extract of the entry, which will give me all the details. And they said, no, you can only ask for your birth certificate. So I gave them, I said, okay, then give me my birth certificate. And this is what I was given.
So I understand that the first birth certificate you asked for was as a result of the committee demanding for it. So after you were passed, you went to ask for it.
Yes.
Now that you've been nominated as minister again, you went to do another correction.
No.
And ask for this one.
No.
You took it on Friday. Is that right?
Yes. But before I took it on Friday, they had, after the 17th, when I made the application, they created one which was wrong in terms of my spelling. So I sent it back to them and said, this is not correct, because these spellings are not the spellings of my name. And then they said they will give it back to me, they will get it prepared, but we never went back for it. As I was coming for this, I said, I want my birth certificate, please give it to me. And they gave me this one now. So it's the same request, which then took them almost 7-8 months to finalize. That's all.
All right.
Mr. Nominee.
Yes, sir.
You remember you were to have met the two of us.
Correct.
And submit to us what I would say the reconciled birth certificate.
Yes.
And then you went to sleep.
Mr. Chairman, as I said, the date of the certificate shows that I actually didn't go to sleep. I went to get the certificate.
Very honorable members, I think that we have dealt into details with this birth certificate. Can we let it rest here?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'll leave the birth certificate matter.
Thank you very much.
I realized that after you Parliament passed, you had forgotten of it, but it's okay. You promised last time, the last time you went through the vetting, you promised that you were going to investigate an issue that was raised by the members of this committee that had to do with the perceived or real regional or tribal imbalance in the recruitment of young Ghanaians into the Ghana Armed Forces. We're even there close to a year now. Is that report ready?
I didn't promise a report. My understanding was I was to look into matters and ensure that issues with regard to regional balance in recruitment were looked at and dealt with. I can report to you that in the military recruitment, never in the history of our country have we had a more transparent position. For the first time, we had a situation where the initial vetting of candidates was not dealt with manually. No one could influence the outcome of the vetting process because you needed to get a scratch card, you applied on computer, and at the moment you finished applying for that job, you were told whether you were qualified or disqualified. It didn't matter what your name, who you were, the content of it was what you would actually tell you, what you put in. And for the first time, every single job had its criteria. So you had the basic criteria for applying, which was the age, height, details, and basic qualification. After that, if you wanted to apply for a payroll, they'll ask you to have an accountancy certificate. If you wanted to be a bandsman, you should have something to do with music. If you wanted to be a carpenter, you had to have a diploma or a certificate that had something to do with carpentry. Every individual job that was going to be dealt with in the military, and they segmented them, Army, Navy, Air Force. So you had to apply for the one you wanted. And once you applied, to tell you disqualified or not disqualified. And it was done across all the regions. It wasn't done in one spot. It didn't matter where you were. Once you got onto a computer, you could apply. But on that application, it asked, which region do you want to be vetted? So everybody who was in their region chose that. Once that was true, the next stage was for the initial screening, where you brought your initial certificates, because if you had lied, for example, to the computer, they would be able to now cross-check it. That was done at a regional basis and a regional level. You also had height checks, initial body checks. Then they went from there, once you had passed that, to exams. You had to now go and do a written exam. This was also regional based. It wasn't that everybody should come to a center in Accra or Kumasi to deal with it. No, it was regional based. It was only when they got to the point of the full medical and the numbers had dwindled completely that they decided that it should be done at the 37 military hospital and I think one other hospital in Kumasi where they dealt with screening on medical. But at that point, the issues with regard to regional balance would have been addressed more readily than had ever been done in the past. Yes, sometimes some of these things can be open to abuse, but in terms of making the process more transparent, it is correct that this has been the most transparent so far. We are open to any future ideas, I believe, even though I'm leaving, that may come to the ministry to assist in making sure that we have better regional balance as well.
Are you therefore saying that there was nothing that that we know in the past used to happen? There was nothing like that we call protocol list, that people didn't go through what we usually term in Ghana as the protocol list, where some powers that be have a list and they aid them through that list, particularly political power.
I'm not aware of the use of protocol in this instance. In fact, the CDS was very adamant, as far as I'm aware. And his policy was clear. And it made absolute sense. He said, look, when I'm asleep, I must be sure that the people who are guarding me are awake. So I'm not going to cut any corners. When we are dealing with the issues of officers, these are the future generals and lieutenants. And therefore, I'm going to ensure that they must meet at least the basic criteria that has been put there. So no one should bring any names or any issues in a situation like that when the people especially have been disqualified and people are trying to bring them in. He says you put one in, you open the floodgates. So it is not something that he was going to entertain. There's also the issue of medical. It doesn't matter what somebody says or doesn't say. If you fail medical, they will not put you through because it's tantamount to suicide. The training and issues that you go through to become a military person are hazardous. And in the past, people have lost their lives. So unlike other recruitments, the military recruitment has been rigorous. That is not to say, in every endeavor where there's human participation, issues can always arise. So I will not be surprised if somebody says, well, we've heard about A or heard about B. That I cannot go against. But in terms of the general principle and the way in which it was carried out, my view is that this was a transparent, foolproof process, which I have not, unless people come up with clear-cut scenarios where, look, this person failed and we brought him in, I have nothing to add to that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I will leave that. The people of Ghana will bring you evidence, but I'll leave that. Mr. Chairman, this government took a policy decision to withdraw allowances that students in the nursing training colleges enjoyed over the years. Yes.
it's
I don't know if I'm wrong. I think somebody has asked this question.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the end of the question, so I didn't know whether
well,
it was...
let me complete my question. No, you say that. I want to find out from you, though you have touched on that question before, and judging from the experience over the last 3 years in implementing that policy the government took, will you advise the government to reverse that decision and pay them some amount of money, judging from the fact that students from very, very poor families are unable to access education any longer at the nursing training colleges? Because per term, they are paying on average between 1,000 and 2,000 per term. And you know, per semester. And I want to find out from you whether you believe that policy was a good policy and that we should continue with it. That's withdrawing the allowances.
I think it was a good policy because, as I said, my understanding of the reason why it was put there was to be as an incentive for people to come in. I take your point on board with regard to it not being the best for people who may have come from very poor backgrounds and therefore may not have the opportunity. But there are other ways of looking at it, and that one of the ways is to look at scholarship scenes, see what GetFund may be willing to do to assist people of that nature without giving a blanket rule of allowances for nurses. So yes, I think I take your point on board that we should find ways of ensuring that people from poor backgrounds who make the grade and wish to join are in a position to do so. But as to whether allowances are the only way of doing it, as I sit here, I don't think so. I think we should look for other means of dealing with it. Thank you.
My last question for you is to find out from you whether you believe it is right for a state official, whether a minister of state or anybody in any capacity who is a public official, to publicly defend or even privately defend a citizen or an individual, a private individual, when the state has a problem with the individual.
Honorable Member, I think that it is the same question being closed in new gaps. It is the same question being closed in new gaps. So I think we'll spare him that ordeal. Yes,
Chairman,
Honorable.
Is it the same question?
It's the same question.
No, I just asked him whether if I am a state official, if I am a public official working for the state, either as a minister of state, a deputy minister, is it right for me to defend, member of parliament, to defend an individual who has a problem with the state?
This is the same question, but made slightly more general than the earlier one. It is the same question. Yes, Honorable Majority Chief Whip.
Alex, congratulations.
Thank you.
I want to find one or two things from you. You see, if you get the nod and you are the Minister for Health, what will you do to promote preventive rather than curative medicine?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that when I was dealing with the issue of cholera, I indicated that even with the current issue of Ebola, where we introduced the issue of washing of hands and sanitation, I would like that to be encouraged and to be kept across board, because I think that the issue of prevention in most of the communicable diseases has to do with hygiene. I think we, as the Ministry of Health, should also work in tandem with the local government initiative of the environmental cleanliness program that is going on a monthly basis, because it all helps in its own way to reduce communicable diseases. And that is what I will intend to do, apart from all the other issues that are already ongoing within the Ministry of Health.
My second issue is you have had a lot of legal training, so you have a lot of legal background. And one of the things you said is that you had some training in sentencing procedures, as I can see, sentencing procedures, as I can see from your CV. Now, assuming you are sitting in cabinet and the issue of sentencing comes up, what would be your advice?
Well, honorable nominee, please don't answer the question. I think it's speculative. It is speculative.
Well, I'll tell you this way. What advice will you give when the issue of sentencing, which you have had training in, comes up for discussion?
It's, Mr. Chairman, the area of sentencing is a very broad aspect, and even within the current legal system, you find that we are looking at alternative dispute arrangements. We are looking at non-custodial sentences being used across the country. One, to decongest our prisons, and two, to help people rehabilitate outside rather than within the walls of prison. So, safe to say that it has a whole raft of issues we can look at. That is the type of issues that I'll be looking at. Sending people to prison sometimes makes situations for them worse than better. They learn things that are not of a good trade and become even worse criminals than when they went in. So the ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution System, and non-custodial sentence or suspended sentencing systems are to be encouraged.
Finally, you see, in terms of health facilities, there are some towns which are very highly populated, but they don't have health facility. You want me to call it? Yeah, like a shaman. You see, when you become the health minister, what will you do to bridge the gap between those who have and those who do not have, particularly a shaman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In terms of infrastructure for the country, the demography of the country is quite crucial, and you have to look at numbers to decide what goes where. No doubt, Ashaman is part of the reason why my colleague in Tema is finding a lot of pressure on the Tema General Hospital because of the issues in Ashama. So it makes sense to say that we should be looking at putting some hospital facilities in the Ashaman district area, even though we are still going to augment or try to augment what is in the Tema area. So yes, if I'm given the nod, it's an area that one will have to look and take quite seriously. Thank you. I know.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the nominee may be going to the Ministry of Health. Chairman, the nominee, if is approved by Parliament, may end up as which number? Number 6? Are you going to be the 6th minister of the ministry?
Which year are you talking about?
You're going to be the 6th minister.
No, honorable minority leader, you have to give a time frame. You know, are you talking about the Mills administration or the Mahama administration?
NDC chapter 1 and 2. 6 ministers within 6 years. Number 7. Mr. Chairman, I'm reminded that is even going to be the 7th minister in just beyond 6 years. But 6 years, within 6 years, because the first minister came in March 2009, and we are just into April. the 7th minister in just 6 years, 1 or 2 months. In your own candid assessment, do you think this is the best situation that we should have as a nation?
Honorable member, are you not asking for an opinion which rests in the bosom of the president? He has only been nominated by the sitting president. So I believe it's not fair to the nominee that this question.
Mr. Chairman, I ask because the Constitution is clear of the mandate of a minister to assist the president to run the sector efficiently. What kind of efficiency could be brought to bear on the administration of that sector if within 6 years, 2 months, as many as 7 ministers have to be loaded to a particular ministry? So I'm asking him, since he's a citizen of this country, whether he thinks this is a good practice.
Honorable member, I still insist that I don't think it's a fair question to the nominee. He has been nominated. If he's given the nod, he will do the best he can. But it doesn't lie in his power to decide who should be there today or who should be there tomorrow.
So I thought the minister, the nominee himself was really warming up to answer the question. Because really, because this has nothing to do with the appointing authority. I'm relating to a particular situation. I'm asking him as a citizen of this country and as a lawyer who understands the Constitution very well, I should think.
Mr. Chairman,
whether
all I will say is that...
Have I landed?
Sorry, I do apologize.
Go on then, since you are more than determined to answer the question.
I'm not determined to answer the question, but I noticed that you are insisting I should, so I'm trying my best. All I'm saying is that I think I'm in a privileged position. All the people who have worked in the ministry, actually quite senior, some MPs, some non-MPs, but experienced people within my party. And so I've had the benefit of actually going to each and every one of them to seek guidance and to be able to find out what issues or non-issues may arise within that ministry. I have a large pool of people who can point me in the direction, the right direction, and to assist me to do what issues. But as to the issues of numbers, Professor Mills appointed, I think, 4 of them, and President Mahama has appointed the other 3. As to why that has happened...
Mr. Chairman, may you stop him? Because you are answering a different question altogether from the question that I asked you. You are asking your own question, you are answering your own question. That's not the question that I asked you. But, Mr. Chairman...
Honorable members, order. The Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Chairman, I asked the question. The chairman was trying to intervene for you. You say you answer. And you said another question and you are going on that part. But let me go on. The chairman, we asked the nominee whether his religion is Christianity. Is the religion Christianity?
Yes, honorable nominee.
I'm a Christian.
Yes. You are a Christian. But what's your religion?
Christianity.
Right. Have you looked at your CV?
I put Christian.
Have you looked at your CV? Did I put my CV?
Yes,
I have
a
correction can be effected. I believe a correction can be effected, so we can make some progress. All right.
I can change it. I will change it.
Okay. You wanted to change to
Christianity.
Mr. Chairman, I think in Ghana we understand employment to be a state of having some remuneration from the work that you do, right? Right? I saw you nodding. Can you speak to me?
Yes.
Right, okay. So you agree that employment means a state of having some pay from your responsibility, the responsibility that you discharge. May I ask if, when you were the secretary to the transition team of the Republic of Ghana, you were remunerated?
We were all given allowances for the separate committees that existed under the transition team.
Where and when you attend IPAC meetings, you are remunerated?
No.
And then when you launch your national campaign, you are remunerated?
No.
When you launch the party manifesto, you are not remunerated?
No.
So why have you categorized all those under employment?
Because my position was publicly announced, and as a result of the public announcement of my position, I was responsible for various issues for which I could be asked or would have to give some account. So for example, in that position, I was the one who was responsible for the check that was paid to the Electoral Commission for members of the party and of the flag bearer. Those type of responsibilities means that you are open to question, and that is why it's a form of employment, but it's not one that has remuneration, and it's an exception to the general rule.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, the simple question to the nominee was, what is employment? And the definition was, it comes with some remuneration if you discharge a responsibility. Now you are saying that because you had to give account, you brought it there. It's like somebody who said that because the president flew in from Abuja to Kumasi Airport, that makes Kumasi Airport International Airport. But, Mr. Speaker, the chairman, let's move on. You have defined employment, and then you go on this tangent. But let's go on. The chairman, the minister designate is going to the Ministry of Health. I've heard in certain circles that for a long time you were thinking that you could bring some competence to bear on the ministry if you were sent there rather than the fence where you were sent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have never, anywhere, expressed any interest in ministry at any point to anyone, and definitely not the Ministry of Health. It came as a complete surprise to me.
Right.
Well.
But you know the remit.
I'm grateful to the President for nominating.
You know the remit of ministers of state.
Yes.
What is the core responsibility of a minister of state?
To deal with issues pertaining to your ministry in a tandem with the policies and principles as pertained by the President of the Republic of Ghana. But you are bound by, and it goes without saying, by the annals and dictates of the Constitution.
First of all, it's for the minister to assist in the evolution of policy for the ministry. That is according to Article 76(2) of the Constitution. It's not the president who does so directly. It's you who should assist him to, evolve that policy.
Thank you.
Then 78(2) also provides that it is your remit to assist the president in running the state efficiently. I suppose the sector that you are posted to, you are supposed to assist the president in running that sector efficiently. So the evolution of policies and assisting the president to run that sector efficiently. What competence do you think you have that you bring to bear on running the sector efficiently?
Predominantly, as you have indicated, you are dealing with policy, and your but you're dealing with it from a position of management and senior management for that matter. I have been a senior manager who has dealt with huge budgets in the past, as well as a large number of staff working under me. So I have a track record of experience in that regard. The bedrock of any system or policy must be premised on law. And therefore, being a lawyer and the Constitution actually being a legal instrument, I think I'm well placed to deal with the issues of any ministry, including the Ministry of Health.
Chairman, since he keeps referring to the policies, and I'm indicating to him that it will be for him to assist the president to determine the policy for that sector. What is the main policy of the Ministry of Health, and what do you think you would be able to do to enrich the policy of the ministry? First, are there any defects in the policy of the ministry, and if there are, what do you think you must do to help enhance the work of the ministry or the sector?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The main mission and vision of the ministry is to ensure that we create a healthy nation that can feed into the socio-economic issues of this country with a healthy workforce. So that is the overarching mission and vision of the ministry. And predominantly, I believe that even based on the little discussion that we've had in this short space of time, I've been able to demonstrate, I like to think, that I'm not afraid to be challenged on policies or issues that will help to pertain, and I'm not also afraid to actually put forward a viewpoint which I think can assist. As you said, I'm here to assist the president in the creation of policy that will help. That policy direction sometimes is directed by what we have put in the manifesto in terms of what we have promised the people of Ghana in the health sector area. And therefore, I believe that I can assist the president to bring to bear these major policy issues. No doubt, it is important that I speak to members of the Committee on Health within Parliament as well, as they have their views, and the large number of senior officials who have actually worked in this ministry within our party helps me to also deal with issues of that, because I have a wealth of experience which I can tap into. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the health insurance scheme is a contributory scheme, and contributory schemes are supposed to, of course, relating to the health ministry, is to help the generality of Ghanaians to improve their health. At the same time, it is also intended to guarantee economic prosperity. It's also intended to guarantee economic prosperity. Now, your ministry is purposed to expand the capitation grant in insurance. And for this year, we are told that aside two regions, that is Greater Accra and the northern regions, all other regions are supposed to come under capitation grant in insurance. We are told that capitation also increases out-of-pocket expenditure of those who come under that regime. Now, given the fact that the poverty situation in the country is still very dire, especially in the three northern regions, do you think that this policy, in the name of helping to stock the facility with more funding, should be carried out?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My understanding of capitation is that, or the capitation grant, is that it benefits the providers of the scheme. It's not negative or has negative connotations as has been put forward. It helps the national health insurance, and it also helps the people who subscribe to it. Because the basic principle behind it is that people are grouped and registered with a particular health clinic or health center, which should be their first port of call if they fall ill. And the reason why it benefits the provider is that a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. You are paid in advance. For primary health care, you are paid in advance under capitation. So if you have a certain number of people registered under your health clinic, they will do a calculation that over this next period, this is what you think you will be using on health, and you are paid that money upfront. And therefore, when they come to you, the person doesn't lose, his behavior pattern should not be any different from any region. He goes to be seen, he goes to the health center, he produces his card, he's dealt with. But people mix up the secondary and the tertiary with the primary. The secondary and the tertiary payment scheme still exists normally in the regions or in Ashanti region as any other place. But for primary health care, capitation is paid to the providers upfront. It has been shown to cut the cost to the National Health Service in terms of the proportion that was being used. And it has also been seen to increase the number of people who actually now use the scheme because of the way it is dealt with. So capitation in Ashanti region actually has been positive discrimination because it is the only area which was piloted where health providers were paid upfront, as opposed to the rest of the country where they all had to wait for their payments by putting in payment schemes like the rest of people.
Chairman,
Honorable nominee, you mentioned secondary and tertiary payment schemes that still exist in the region. I'm saying that there's nothing like secondary and tertiary schemes. That's what he said.
I agree. I mean, inpatient care. That's what I meant. It's more for outpatient care. Terminology, I do apologize.
Mr. Chairman, the issue is, the emphasis was on providers, right? I'm talking about subscribers, that it impoverishes subscribers all the more. That's the issue that I raised. I said, given the poverty situation in the country, do you think it's going to be of benefit to the people of this country, especially the poorest of the poor? I mean, that's the issue that I raised. But your emphasis is on providers who are going to benefit. My emphasis is on the subscribers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will look into it further, but my understanding is that in terms of the primary health care, I'm still at a loss as to see how the beneficiaries, the poor, are any different in any region from where capitation is, because they still present their card and they are still dealt with in the same way as anybody else. The only difference, that's what my understanding is, and I may stand to be corrected. The only difference is that the provider, they must go to where they are registered for their health care. They are not allowed to jump from one clinic to the other. So if you're registered in a particular and you go, you're looked after. So I'm just at a little loss. Forgive me. I stand to be correct as to how they lose out money. Because if you went to another region and you were looked after, you'll still be looked after. The only difference there is that they will pay the money, they'll put in a claim, and then they have to get paid. But in capitation, they have already been paid before you get there.
Mr. Chairman, given what is expressed, that he stands to be corrected, and he's here to go there, maybe we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Let him go and study the system. He will
I'm
know
obliged.
that what he's saying is not totally correct. So you will take that up. But Mr. Chairman, permit me to go back to the issue that was raised at the very outset in respect of a statement that the nominee is alleged to have made. And he said that he didn't go with a prepared test and that he spoke extempore. And I mean, certain matters have been raised. And he says, well, if it offends people, he's prepared to withdraw it. Is it the case that he's making an emphatic statement that I realize upon second thought that what I said or what's been attributed to me, even though I didn't go with a prepared statement, it's not the best of statement that should have come from me, so I withdraw and apologize. Is that the case that should be taken? Or are you insisting that if people are offended by what is attributed to you, you want to withdraw? Which is which? Because the two are different.
Mr. Chairman, I think I was quite clear when I actually made the statement initially. My position, I was quite clear when I made the statement initially. I said, and I stand to be corrected again, that with regard to what is said, I'm supposed to have said, there was no intention on my part to give any indication of whatsoever that I was being tribalistic or had any ethnic intention. In fact, if you listen to the statement, no tribe is mentioned and no ethnicity is mentioned. But I can understand why, in the current climate, people can attribute those sentiments to that type of a statement. And therefore, if that is the case, I'm happy to withdraw those statements. I'm happy for that to be withdrawn because it is not my intention to create any disrepute, because I have been in a situation where racism is an issue, which is also a form of discrimination. I'm totally against it. I'm totally against tribalism, and I'm totally against any form of victimization based on clan tribe. So if people are getting that message from what I am supposed to have said, then I'm happy to withdraw any aspect of it. But it was never my intention, and I believe I've been taken out of context. That's my view. I heard it was reported on the radio. Yes, and I'm saying that, no, I'm not saying you. I'm saying that those that have that view are taking me out of context. I never mentioned any ethnic group in this statement.
So you are indicating to us. No, I want us to be very clear on that. That maybe when it came back to you, as I said, because you have made a statement, what has been attributed to you, what is alleged that you said, are you owning up to it that you said what has been attributed to you, and that, given what has turned out, you are withdrawing? I want a very clear, concise, unambiguous statement, explicit. I think that will serve a better purpose than the circuitous journey that you want to, route us through. I want to be very clear in my mind.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think I'm being circuitous. I think I'm actually being quite clear. One, even your colleague asked me, why did I use the word, can I say that I said those things? And I said, the general gist of what came out, yes, I accept it, but I cannot accept verbatim because it wasn't a prepared speech. I did it extempo. So I'm not exactly sure everything that was said, but the general gist, yes. But it is the intention behind the statement for me that matters. And the intention is clear. I've come out categorically. I am not in any way being tribalistic or in any way showing any form of ethnicity in that statement. It was never my intention, and no such intention should be imputed to me. But I can understand why some may take the view that they feel that in the current climate, these type of statements are deemed to have that type of. So in regard to that, I am saying that I accept that some may be offended. And if that is the case, I withdraw them. I don't want to cause any offense. I don't think I'm being ambiguous.
Chairman, I will not pursue the matter further. I would wish him the best of luck if the committee agrees to approve of your nomination.
I'm grateful, Honorable Minority Leader.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, I don't have any question for him. I'd like to thank him for attending upon this committee. We'll give our acknowledgements, and then after that, you'll be discharged. No, we're not going to go through a whole list. Let's just recognize the officials who are here from Ministry of Health and so on, the chiefs. You know, please do it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The chiefs, Fiao, Togbi, Tenge, Jokoto, Gligui, Adelia, Fiaga of Anglon traditional area. Mamanga, Midwape, Evelia, Mamaga of Anglon traditional area. Togbi, Aposa, Adelia, Anglon traditional area. Togbi, Ashago, Atolia, Fiaga of Veta traditional area. Togbi, Soko, Dufia, Veta traditional area. Togbi, Gelu, Enelia, Dufia of Gelu Kope. Mama, Dusewa, Evelia, Tegbi. Mama, Diaope, Evelia of Tegbi. Mama, Tokonu, Evelia of Keta. Togbi Avege, Atolia of Angloga. Togbi James Oklu, Atolia, Dufia of Keta. Togbi Boni, Evelia, Angloga. Chamiga, Jopon, Angloga, Central Tong. Togbi Kwasini, Ajiman, Enelia, Dufia of Adidome, Mafi, traditional area. Efiao, Bankolefia, all the chiefs who are here, party executives are here, traditional areas from the north, family members, and Ministry of Health officials, and representative of Forum for Governance and Justice, also represented. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member, for attending upon this committee. You are discharged. We'll move on straight to the next nominee. So move out quietly. The next nominee.